Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. At sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin. Kamusta mga kapong Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open.
The day a tiny nation broke the Australian Open. How Eala's Court 6 revolution forced the world to bow down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Champions Tennisitics. Let me take you back to a moment that will live in tennis infamy forever. Picture this. It is January 2026. Melbourne Park. The Australian Open, the so-called Happy Slam, known for its relaxed vibes and barbecue summers. But on the second Monday of the tournament, there was nothing relaxed about Court 6. In fact, if you were there, you might have thought a riot was breaking out. Security barriers were groaning under the weight of thousands of bodies. Fans were climbing fences, hanging off railings, and chanting so loudly that players on Rod Laver Arena, 3 courts away, could hear the roar. The organizers were in a panic. Police were called in. The fire marshal was threatening to shut down the sector. Why? Was it Nadal's farewell? Was it Djokovic? No, it was a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines, Eala. The organizers made a mistake, a grave, monumental mistake. They put the hottest rising star in women's tennis, the pride of 115 million Filipinos, on a side court with a capacity of a few hundred. Michael Zhang, a stunned witness to the carnage, later said what everyone was thinking. We underestimated her far too much. The media attention was 20 times greater than for Grand Slam champions. The match itself? It ended in a loss. But that didn't matter. Because on that day, a small tennis nation didn't just show up, they overthrew the establishment. They caused the metaphorical collapse of the Australian Open stadium logistics and forced the world to look at a new reality. The Philippines has arrived in tennis, and they are louder, prouder, and more passionate than anyone was ready for. Today, we are diving deep. We are going to tell you the full story of the Court 6 revolution and how that insane energy has now traveled 6,000 kilometers north to Manila, where the next chapter is about to be written. This is the story of Eala, the world number 49, and the week that changed everything. Buckle up. This is Champions Tennisitics. Let's unpack what actually happened in Melbourne, because the mainstream news only gave you the headlines. They told you Eala lost to the American power server Alicia Parks. They told you the score, 0-6, 6-3, 6-2. But they didn't tell you about the fear in the organizers' eyes. The Australian Open Scheduling Committee treats the draw like a math equation. Top seeds go to Rod Laver or Margaret Court Arena. Lower seeds and unseeded players, they go to the parking lot courts. In their minds, Eala, despite cracking the top 50, was just another young player. They forgot the puso factor. Puso. It means hard in Tagalog, but in sports, it means an unyielding, almost terrifying dedication to your countrymen. When the schedule dropped, the Filipino diaspora in Australia, one of the largest communities down under, mobilized like an army. They didn't buy tickets to see Alcaraz. They bought ground passes for Eala. By 10 a.m., Court 6 was full. By 10:30, the walkways were blocked. By 11 o'clock, the crowd was spilling into the specialized dining areas. When Eala walked out, the sound was deafening. It wasn't polite tennis applause. It was basketball arena noise. It was a roar that sounded like a jet engine taking off in a library. The controversy started immediately. Tennis etiquette is sacred. Silence during points, polite applause for winners. But the Filipino crowd? They cheered everything. They cheered when Eala hit a winner. They cheered when she walked to the towel. And yes, controversy erupted when they cheered Alicia Parks' double faults. The media called it unsportsmanlike. The fans called it passion. Alicia Parks, to her credit, admitted she was rattled. Who wouldn't be? It felt like playing an away game in the Davis Cup finals. But this was supposed to be a neutral Grand Slam first round. The Court 6 collapse wasn't a physical structure falling down. It was the collapse of the old tennis world order. It was the moment the sport realized that tennis isn't just for the polite elite anymore. It belongs to the masses. It belongs to nations who have been starving for a hero. And while Eala lost that match, Park's serve was just too fast that day. The message was sent. You cannot hide Alex Eala on court 6 ever again. The Australian Open learned what happens when you underestimate the power of a nation finding its voice through one player. Tournament directors around the world took notice. This wasn't just about court assignments anymore. This was about recognizing that tennis was experiencing a seismic demographic shift, and the Philippines was leading the charge. Now, shift your gaze from the heat of Melbourne to the humid, electric air of Manila. Immediately after that chaotic Australian Open exit, Alex Eala didn't go to Europe. She didn't go back to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain to train. She flew home. Why? Because history was waiting. For the first time ever, the Philippines is hosting a WTA 125 event, the Philippine Women's Open. This is not a drill. For decades, Filipino tennis fans had to survive on grainy live streams or expensive flights to Singapore or Tokyo to see pro tennis. Now, the tour has come to them. And the timing? It's cinematic. The tournament is being held at the Rizal Memorial Tennis Center. This place is hallowed ground. It's seen decades of sports history, but it has never seen a WTA-sanctioned event of this magnitude. The Philippine Sports Commission, led by Patrick Pato Gregorio, moved mountains to make this happen as the first major project of 2026. And who is the face of the tournament? Who is the reason the tickets are selling faster than K-pop concerts? It's the girl who broke court 6. Alex Eala arrived in Manila to a hero's welcome. But here is the fascinating part. Despite the chaos she caused in Australia, despite being the co-athlete of the year alongside world champions, despite the rankings boost to a career-high number 49, she is remarkably, almost eerily, calm. Listen to what she said at the press conference. The reporters were practically begging for a soundbite about winning the title. They wanted her to promise a trophy. Eala simply smiled and said, "I never go into any tournament thinking to win the whole thing. Although this is at home, my mindset in that sense is no different. I take it match by match. I will do everything I can to win the first one." That is the Rafa Nadal training speaking. Match by match. It's humble. It's professional. And it is driving the fans crazy because they don't want match by match. They want a coronation. But this measured approach is exactly what has made Eala so dangerous on the court. She doesn't get ahead of herself. She doesn't let the moment become bigger than the match. It's a maturity that belies her 20 years, and it's the reason she's been able to handle the pressure that has crushed other young players. The expectations in Manila are suffocating. Every billboard features her face. Every sports talk show discusses her chances. Social media is ablaze with predictions and prayers. The entire nation has essentially stopped to watch one of their own compete on home soil at the highest level. And through it all, Eala remains centered, focused, and ready. Before we preview the upcoming match, we need to understand why the expectations are so heavy. If you've been sleeping on Alex Eala's 2025 season, you missed one of the greatest rises in Asian tennis history. Last year, 2025, was the year Eala stopped being a prospect and became a predator. She didn't just climb the rankings, she tore through them. She started the year outside the top 140. She finished it inside the top 50. How? The Miami Miracle. Remember the Miami Open? She entered as a wild card. The critics said she was too small, too inexperienced. She responded by taking down 3 giants, Iga Swiatek, Yelena Ostapenko, and Madison Keys. She beat a world number 1 and 2 Grand Slam finalists in 1 week. That wasn't luck. That was a statement. The tennis world had been sleeping on this lefty from Manila, and she woke them up with a thunderclap. Beating Swiatek alone would have been the story of the year for most players. But Eala didn't stop there. She followed it up by dismantling Ostapenko's power game and outsmarting Keys in a tactical masterclass. Then came the Grand Slam history. She broke the curse at the US Open, becoming the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam main draw match. For a nation that had been knocking on the door of tennis relevance for decades, this was the breakthrough moment. It wasn't just about one match. It was about proving that Filipino players belonged on the biggest stages in tennis. The victory sent shockwaves through Philippine sports media and ignited a tennis boom that is still growing. The momentum continued into 2026. Just weeks ago, in January, she stormed the semi-finals of the ASB Classic in New Zealand, beating heavy hitters like Donna Vekic and Magda Linette. These weren't fluky wins. These were comprehensive dismantlings of experienced tour veterans who have been in Grand Slam quarterfinals and finals. Eala was outthinking them, out-hitting them, and most importantly, outworking them in the crucial moments. She is no longer the junior champion who won the U.S. Open girls title in 2022. She is a tour-level threat. She plays lefty, with a whip-like forehand that finds angles most players don't even see. She has the grit of Nadal, unsurprising given her years training at his academy, and the court craft of a veteran. Her serve, once considered a weakness, has become a weapon. Her movement on hard courts is exceptional. And her mental game? That's where she truly separates herself from the pack. But fame has a price. The Eala mania is real. In the Philippines, she isn't just a tennis player. She is on the level of Manny Pacquiao in his prime. When she eats, it's news. When she trains, people watch. Her social media posts get hundreds of thousands of interactions within minutes. Brands are lining up to sponsor her. The government is considering her for national honors. And now, she has to play in front of them. All of them. She admitted it feels surreal. To have a home tournament and see it come to life, I am so grateful and have a little kind of disbelief that it is actually happening. I feel na kailan lang ang leo ing dream na ito. Now it's happened. So I am happy to be here. That translates to, I feel like it was just recently that this dream was so far away. There's a vulnerability in those words, a recognition that she's living a dream that seemed impossible just a few years ago. Think about her journey for a moment. She left the Philippines as a young girl to train in Spain, away from her family, away from everything familiar. She spent years grinding on the ITF circuit, playing in small tournaments in Eastern European towns nobody's heard of, staying in budget hotels, eating whatever she could afford. She dealt with injuries, losses, and the constant uncertainty of whether she'd ever make it. And now, she's back home, not as a struggling prospect, but as a top 50 player, a national hero, and the centerpiece of a historic tournament. The emotional weight of that journey is enormous. So here we are. The stage is set. Rizal Memorial Tennis Center. The match is the round of 32 at the Philippine Women's Open. The opponent is Elena Kariva. Don't let the ranking fool you. Kariva is ranked number 169, but she is dangerous. She is a neutral athlete from Russia, a country that produces tennis robots who hit the ball flat and hard. Russian tennis academies are famous for their brutal training regimens and their ability to produce players with rock-solid fundamentals and mental toughness. And here is the kicker, the detail that makes this match spicy. They have history. They aren't strangers. They met back in 2020 in Spain on the ITF circuit. Back then, Eala was just 15 years old, still finding her way on the professional circuit, still developing her game. Kariva beat her in straight sets, 6-3, 6-3. It was a comprehensive victory, the kind that stings and stays with you. That loss sits in the record books. Eala knows it. Kariva knows it. In the tennis world, head-to-head records matter. They create psychological advantages. Kariva can walk onto the court knowing she's already beaten her opponent once. She knows Eala's patterns, her tendencies, her weaknesses from that match. But here's the thing. That was 2020. That was a different player. That was a girl. The woman stepping onto the court in Manila is a completely different animal. Eala was gracious about her opponent. I have met her before. She is a very nice person and a great player, so I am just going out there and prepare to the best of my ability. Classic Eala, diplomatic and respectful. But make no mistake, Kariva is walking into the lion's den. If she thought the Australian Open crowd was intense, she has no idea what awaits her in Manila. The home of the Filipinos isn't just a slogan on Court 6 anymore. It is the literal venue. The crowd will be 100% behind Eala. Every unforced error Kariva makes will be cheered. Every winner Eala hits will be celebrated like a buzzer beater in the NBA Finals. The pressure on Kariva will be suffocating. Playing in hostile territory is one of the hardest challenges in sports. In tennis, where mental fortitude is everything, where a single point can shift momentum, where the silence between points is supposed to help you reset, having thousands of people actively rooting against you is brutal. The pressure on Eala will be different, but equally intense. She has to manage her nerves and use that energy without letting it overwhelm her. Home court advantage is real, but it can also backfire. The desire to please the crowd, to live up to expectations, to not disappoint the people who have traveled hours to see you, can create tension that affects your game. Players who normally thrive under pressure sometimes crumble when playing at home because the emotional stakes are too high. But Eala sees the crowd as a weapon, not a burden. I will be happy to see many Pinoys coming out to see us play tennis. It is so crazy to see this community rallying behind me. And the support has led to something like this, the first home tournament. She's choosing to frame the crowd as fuel, as an extra source of energy when she's tired, as a reminder of why she's fighting. That mindset could be the difference in a tight match. Let's talk tactics for a moment. Kariva is a baseliner who relies on consistency and power from the back of the court. She doesn't have a huge serve, but she's solid. She makes you beat her. She doesn't beat herself. That style of play can be incredibly frustrating to face, especially for aggressive players who want to dictate points. Eala, on the other hand, is more versatile. She can play from the baseline, but she's also comfortable coming forward, using her lefty angles to pull opponents off the court, and then finishing points at the net. The key for Eala will be controlling the tempo. If she lets Kariva settle into a rhythm, trading ground strokes from the baseline, this match could go the distance. But if Eala can keep the points short, use her serve to set up quick winners, and mix in drop shots and slices to disrupt Kariva's timing, she should be able to control the match. The crowd will help with that. The noise will make it harder for Kariva to focus, harder to stick to her game plan, harder to execute under pressure. There's also the revenge factor. Athletes remember losses, especially losses that came at formative moments in their careers. That 2020 defeat to Kariva happened when Eala was still trying to prove herself, still trying to figure out who she was as a player. Now, she has the chance to close that chapter definitively. A win here wouldn't just advance her to the next round. It would symbolically demonstrate how far she's come. It would be a statement that the 15-year-old who lost in Spain is gone, replaced by a top 50 player who belongs in the conversation with the best in the world. Why does this matter? Why are we making a 5,000-word video about a round of 32 match in a 125 tournament? Because this is how sports change. For a century, tennis has been dominated by the West. The United States, Europe, Australia. Small nations were guests at the table, expected to be grateful for the opportunity to compete, but not expected to actually challenge the established powers. But the democratization of the sport is happening right now. The Philippines, a country obsessed with basketball and boxing, has found a new religion. The collapse of the Australian Open Stadium was a warning shot. It showed that the demographics of tennis fandom are shifting. The fans are younger, louder, and more diverse. They don't care about quiet pleas. They want action. They want heroes who look like them. They want to see themselves reflected on the court. For too long, tennis has been criticized for being too white, too wealthy, too exclusive. The sport has been trying to change that narrative, but real change doesn't come from press releases and diversity initiatives. It comes from moments like this. The police don't need to intervene this time because the chaos is welcome here. The grave mistake of the Australian Open organizers has become the glorious opportunity of the Philippine organizers. The world's smallest tennis nation didn't just break a stadium. They built a new one, figuratively and literally, right in the heart of Manila. And they are daring the world to come and beat them in their own house. We are witnessing the prime of Eala. At 20 years old, she's entering the peak years of her career. Most tennis players hit their stride in their early to mid-20s, and Eala is right on schedule. Her body is strong enough to handle the grueling tour schedule. Her mind is mature enough to handle the pressure. Her game is developed enough to compete with anyone. The next few years will determine whether she becomes a top 20 player, a Grand Slam contender, or something even greater. We are witnessing the birth of the Philippines as a tennis destination. This tournament is the first step. If it succeeds, we could see more WTA events, ADP events, maybe even a premier-level tournament in the future. The infrastructure is being built. The fan base is there. The talent pipeline is developing. The Philippines could become to tennis what it already is to basketball in Asia, a powerhouse that produces world-class athletes and passionate fans. And we are witnessing the power of a fan base that refuses to be quiet. The Court 6 revolution wasn't an accident. It wasn't a one-time thing. It was a declaration. Filipino tennis fans are loud, proud, and here to stay. They will not be told to sit down and clap politely. They will cheer, they will chant, they will make their presence felt. And the tennis establishment will have to adapt because this is the future of the sport. The match is today. The world is watching. And if you're not paying attention to Eala, You're making the same mistake the Australian Open did. And we know how that ended. Tournament organizers, players, sponsors, and media members are all tuned in to see what happens when the girl who broke court 6 plays in front of her home crowd. This is appointment viewing for tennis fans, even those who don't normally watch WTA 125 events. What do you think, champions? Is Alex Eala destined to crack the top 20 this year? The trajectory suggests it's possible. She's already proven she can beat top 10 players. She's shown she can handle Grand Slam pressure. If she stays healthy and maintains her current form, breaking into the top 20 is a realistic goal for 2026. Some analysts are even suggesting she could push for the top 15 if she has a breakout Grand Slam performance. Can she handle the pressure of the home crowd? Or will Kariva pull off the upset? Playing at home is a double-edged sword. The energy can lift you to heights you didn't know were possible, or it can crush you under the weight of expectation. Eala's mental toughness will be tested like never before. But given everything she's already overcome in her career, betting against her seems foolish. And seriously, were you part of the Court 6 chaos in Melbourne? If you were there, if you witnessed history, if you were one of the thousands who stormed that side court and forced the tennis world to pay attention, we want to hear your stories. What was it like? How did it feel to be part of that moment? Did you know you were witnessing something special? Or did you just come to support your player? Smash that like button if you're rooting for the underdog. Subscribe to Champions Tennisitics because we are covering every single match of this historic week. We'll have analysis, highlights, interviews, and all the behind-the-scenes content you need to stay connected to this tournament. And hit the notification bell. You do not want to miss our post-match analysis when the results come in. We'll break down every key moment, every tactical decision, and what it all means for Eala's career trajectory. The revolution is here. Are you in? This isn't just about tennis anymore. This is about representation, national pride, and the changing face of global sports. This is about a 20-year-old woman carrying the hopes of 115 million people on her shoulders and doing it with grace, humility, and killer forehands. This is about proving that passion and heart can compete with tradition and infrastructure. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep your eye on the ball. Because when Alex Eala steps onto that court at Rizal Memorial, when the crowd erupts, when the first ball is struck, we'll all be witnesses to history. Whether she wins or loses this particular match, the larger story is already written. The Philippines has arrived in tennis. Alex Eala is their champion, and the world will never underestimate them again.
Excited.
Champions Tennisitics, signing off.
Kamusta mga kapong Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu